Whew, all right, just got back from NAB as well as a trip with my friend Dave Herring and my new friend Scott Evans. I flew down from here in the Pacific Northwest down to the Bay Area to meet up with Dave, and then we drove out through some amazing bits of the Sierras, hit Alabama Hills, went to Death Valley, down to NAB where all the YouTubers hang out. But because the front end of this trip was actually just like nerdy photo adventure time, I decided to kind of pull out some of the big guns for this one. And one of the biggest sort of things I learned here was the use between prime lenses and zoom lenses. So right off the bat, we have my Leica M11 here. I brought this with the 28 Summicron, my 35 Summilux, and my 50 Summilux. And then on the other end of this thing, this is the Hasselblad X2 D2 with the 35 to 100E lens. I'll add one more thing because you see one more thing on the table here. This is the Sony FX3. It's what I film most of my videos that are outside of my office on. And most of the time I'm filming them with the Sony 24 to 50 f2.8G lens. But this is the Typoc 24 to 50 2.8 lens. Now this isn't out yet, and I was planning on actually making this video about using this lens. So all of the footage you're gonna see from the FX3 at least is going to be done on this lens. It was the only lens I brought to film on. There's gonna be a few clips in this video that you'll see from the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, as well as I also use the Insta360 X4 Air, I think. But well, again, this is not out yet. Typoc did actually say that I could talk about it a tiny bit, but I will make a full review at some point. And obviously you can see the clips in here and kind of decide for yourself. So my friend Dave Herring had a sponsorship thing where we were able to drive an Ineos Grenadier out into the desert. I've always thought that those types of vehicles look amazing. And so it sort of became like another character in our photo making stuff. Obviously, Dave had to actually go out and make some images. I don't really have a car like that, but it was fun to have like another like subject to make photos of. Now, I get what you're going to say, and I would probably be saying the same thing in a lot of cases, like, must be nice. But when you're going out with friends and like the whole thing you're trying to do is like make fun images for fun. I didn't have a client. I didn't have anything else going for me. And I like having a smaller kit, something that I can put this in a bag and use it. But I also found that there were a lot of situations out in the desert where it was really windy and dusty and sandy. And although this is obviously quite a bigger kit, it's even bigger than, you know, tossing all of my lenses together and using the Leica kit. I did find that the idea of just bringing one camera setup with a even fuller range of focal lengths could also be a really, really useful idea. So I flew down from the Pacific Northwest, met up with Dave and Scott, and we drove 6+ hours to a place called Randsburg, tiny little historic town in the middle of nowhere. Jumped into a local dive bar in the middle of the day, which was oddly pretty packed, but it was definitely a nice little culture shock of sorts and definitely jumped me from my very green Pacific Northwest vibes to a very deserty Central California. So we ended up in a place called Lone Pine for the night, walked around the town, got some photos of all the kind of classic neon signs, and woke up, again, super early to do some photos in the Alabama Hills. Now I want to take a quick second to thank my friends at Musicbed for sponsoring this video. Music actually has been a part of my life for much longer than photography has. I grew up playing, I still play, and if you ever looked at the background of lots of my videos, you'll see multiple guitars in the background here. But music isn't just a background for me, it's part of how I think about storytelling. So when it comes to the music in my videos, I've never been willing to think of it as an afterthought. Every video needs a song that actually fits, not just tempo-wise, but emotionally. The feeling of the footage and the feeling of the music need to be the same thing. And for the entirety of this channel, Musicbed is legitimately the only place I've ever gone to for that. They have a lineup of artists that I actually listen to and have actually discovered through using Musicbed as well. Songs that I found on Musicbed show up on my own personal playlists, and often my clients have even gone and added them on their own Spotify and Apple Music after seeing their wedding films. A lot of platforms right now are moving towards AI-generated music. Musicbed isn't doing this, and they've been super clear about that. As a musician myself, it's something that I really respect, and it's where I've drawn the line as well. The emotional weight of a song exists because a human being actually felt something and figured out how to put it to sound. And I'm not willing to put something over my work that wasn't made with the same intention that I'm putting into it. So if you make videos, films, or anything that music actually is important, go try out Musicbed. You can start a 14-day free trial with the link down in the description, and I think you'll find what I've found. Artists that actually are worth listening to, that are making music that's worth building your work around. So we made the most of our early morning time and then set off for Death Valley, a place I've actually never been before. And thankfully, if you haven't been, this time of year isn't nearly as crazy hot as it can clearly be during the summer, as one of the hottest places on Earth. We explored some abandoned mines, looked up to see how far beneath sea level we actually were, checked into our place for some rest, and then headed out later for the sand dunes at sunset. Now, of course, not for the faint of heart and those who appreciate a good night's sleep. We had 2 more early mornings, the first of which being our way out of Death Valley, stopping to get a few landscapes as well as some more photos of the Ineos Grenadier for Dave. Then we pushed on, made it to Vegas, did all of our NAB stuff, but one morning we still decided to get out early again and make a few more photographs. So I get, again, it's overkill to have brought both of these systems, but it's one of the things that I kind of honestly have a little bit of a struggle with is the idea that I can get kind of like decision fatigue. Oftentimes I will bring a full, 2 different kits and stuff, but I only have the opportunity to go out with one of them at a time, which is kind of nice. So there were multiple times on the trip that I just went out and used my Leica kit, and there were multiple times on the trip where I came out and just used the Hasselblad kit. Now, one of the things that I tell young photographers, and I know a lot of seasoned photographers will say, just stick with one focal length, use that for a while, and then kind of master that, and then you can move on to another one. A counterpoint to that I often say is zoom lenses actually can be really great. And one of the things that you can do afterwards is you can go into your Lightroom catalog after you've used quite a bit, and you can figure out like, okay, where am I actually spending my time within that zoom range? And then that can kind of help inform you on which prime lenses you might want to start looking at. Now, the problem here is that in a 35 to 100, you have 35, 36, 37, 38. Like you can go through the entire length of focal lengths here. And it doesn't allow for nearly as much kind of creative freedom. And frankly, there are times where, despite the fact that I've used prime lenses for years and years, I will pull this camera up and I'll kind of go, do I like it at 75? No, I'll bring it back to like 60 or 55. Well, this looks good at 35, and the amount of extra decisions can end up kind of inhibiting your creative process and your creative flow. And one of the times this is super evident is we were in Death Valley on the sand dunes, and we went out there and I only brought my Leica kit. And I didn't only bring my Leica kit, but I brought only the 28 and the 50. And there were times where I kind of wish I had a little bit more reach. There were times where I actually wish I had even a wider lens. But I had those 2 options, a 28 and a 50. And it was another one of those creative exercises to go, all right, these are the focal lengths I have. What am I able to do with those in the moment? And I think that I was able to be more creative because I wasn't just gifted with all of the different things. Sometimes you don't want to be forced to be creative. When you're out doing a paid gig or something, it's really nice to have the focal lengths that you need to have. But I will say it's, adding creative limitations are the places where you're able to finesse that a little bit, and it forces you into decision-making that you wouldn't have otherwise. That again is a creative process that can kind of help you get out of some ruts. But where I think the Hasselblad really won here, and especially again, the 35 to 100 is this kind of stuff where you're just going out and kind of like making landscape images and a lot of still life, and you want maximum color fidelity, maximum dynamic range. And if you're able to carry a camera this big and a lens this big, I just found that the experience doing what we were doing out in the desert, photographing this Ineos Grenadier that Dave had as part of like a sponsorship thing. I mean, if I was going to go out and do this as like a tool for a job, this is absolutely what I would bring. It makes the most sense. I don't need really, really shallow depth of field. And even if I do, like this does a pretty decent job of that. But again, maximum color fidelity, maximum resolution. If I'm trying to make prints and things like that, this is going to technically be the better tool. Now, does anybody need this setup? No, definitely not. But is this a setup that is really, really useful and helpful? And again, if I was going to go out and make the images that I needed to make, it was part of like a paid job. Of course, if I have access to this, this is going to be the tool that I use for that job. So ultimately, are you team prime lenses? Are you team zoom lenses? Are you team Hasselblad? Are you team Leica? I mean, these are all great options, clearly. Obviously, you don't even need to use a Leica or a Hasselblad. This is obviously for Fujifilm cameras and Sony cameras and all sorts of things. But the idea of actually paring down and not going with a maximalist setup here is legitimately something that is more useful. I've been trying to do a little bit more gear purging lately, because as much as my ADHD brain loves to have every option for every different scenario, it does kind of hinder my creativity a little bit to have all of the options at all of the times. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. You can check out Dave's channel and Scott's channel as well. I'll link them around here somewhere. And then check out this video that YouTube thinks you would like, and I'll see you over there.